हेलो फ्रेंड्स, मेरे नए वीडियोस देखते रहने के लिए मेरे वीडियो के नीचे दिए गए ये साइन सब्सक्राइब को अवश्य क्लिक करें। इसके बाद ये बेल के साइन को क्लिक करें। यहाँ इसको बॉक्स को क्लिक करने के बाद सेव करें ताकि आप नोटिफिकेशन मिलता रहे आपको मेरे नए वीडियोस देखने के लिए। थैंक यू। My dear students and friends, welcome back. I'm going to make a new video for you, and this is the video for those students who are in different countries, not in my countries, but they want to learn or understand Indian accent in English, as they are working with some Indian colleagues and they want to talk to them. So this is my second video in that series, and here I'm going to tell you an incident actually that happened or occurred in my childhood. So let's begin. First, I'm going to let you know that incident, and after that I'll write that incident step by step to understand Indian accent in English. So let's begin. That incident actually took place in my childhood when I was just 2 years old. As usual, my mother was cooking pudding in the kitchen, and my father was sitting in the kitchen itself and waiting for his lunch. I was standing beside my mother. I liked pudding very much in my childhood. So I smelled that and I pulled my mother's saree and asked her to give me some pudding. But I was just 2 years old that time and I was cutting my teeth and I was suffering from loose motion. So my mother denied. She didn't give me any pudding. I stood up there for quite some time, and then I pulled my mother's saree again and I asked her to give me some pudding, but she denied. The third time I asked my mother to give me some pudding, but that time my mother asked me to go to my father, who was sitting there in the kitchen itself and waiting for the lunch. I went to my father and I asked him to give me some pudding, but he was in a hurry and he had been watching everything, so he understood that I was not to be given pudding as I was suffering from loose motion. And he scolded me and denied. And he was busy in eating and my mother was busy in cooking. So I was in fear and nobody actually paid any attention to me, what I was doing. So I started going back without turning my face. And unfortunately, there was a staircase, and I rolled from first to last, and I cried loudly. And my grandfather ran towards me and picked me up and found that I was unconscious and my forehead was bleeding too much. He pressed my forehead with his towel and took me to the nearest hospital. And everybody, every member of my family followed him. He rushed to the hospital, nearest hospital. The doctor examined me there and found that I got 7 stitches on my forehead and it was bleeding and I was unconscious. I got 7 stitches there, and the doctor told my parents and my grandparents that if I didn't get consciousness within 16 hours, within 24 hours, I might die or I might be mentally retarded, as it was a very, very deep cut. Everybody was worried and everybody was sitting around my bed. But for by after 16 hours, actually, I opened my eyes and I asked for some water. And then, as I got my sense within 24 hours, I was out of danger. That was told by the doctor. So everybody was very happy and heaved a sigh of relief. So that's the story. And now let's begin. I write it here to understand. Okay, so that incident took place in my childhood when I was 2 years old. That incident took place in my childhood when I was 2 years old. I was cutting teeth and suffering from loose motion. As usual, my mother was preparing pudding in the kitchen, and my father was sitting in the kitchen and waiting for the pudding and his lunch. I liked pudding in my childhood very much. I smelt it and asked my mother to give me. I smelled it and pulled my mother's saree. Asked her to give me some pudding. I smelt it and pulled my mother's saree and asked her to give me some pudding. As she had known I was suffering, from loose motion, she denied. I kept quiet for some time. I kept quiet for some time and asked her again to give me some pudding. I kept quiet for some time and asked her again to give me some pudding. She denied again and asked me to go to my father for pudding. My father for pudding. I went to my father. And asked him to give me some pudding and asked him to give me some pudding. He had watched or observed, you can say. He had observed the situation. He had already observed the situation. So he didn't want to give me pudding. So he didn't want to give me pudding. And he scolded me and denied. He scolded me and denied. I was in fear. I was in fear. I started going back without turning my face. I started going back without turning my face. Started going back without turning my face. My mother was in no means. Nobody actually paid attention to me. Nobody paid attention to me as my mother was cooking and my father was eating. Nobody paid attention to me as my mother was cooking and my father was eating. Unfortunately, there was a staircase behind me. Unfortunately, there was a staircase behind me. I rolled down from first to last. Rolled down from first stair to the last one. I cried loudly. I cried loudly. Everybody heard my cry and rushed to me. Everybody heard my cry and rushed to me. My grandfather picked me up and found I was unconscious. I was unconscious, and my forehead was bleeding. He pressed my forehead and rushed to the nearest hospital. Everybody followed him. Everybody means every member of my family followed him. Everybody followed him. I got 7 stitches there. Stitches on my forehead. I got 7 stitches on my forehead. Doctor told my parents. Doctor told my parents if I didn't get my consciousness, within 24 hours, I might die. Or I might be mentally retarded. I told my parents if I didn't get my consciousness within 24 hours, I might die or I might be mentally retarded. Everybody prayed to God to save my life. Everybody prayed to God to save my life. I got sense in 16 hours. I got sense in 16 hours. I was out of danger. Everybody was happy. Everybody was happy and heaved a sigh of relief. So that was the story. You may listen to it again and again and watch that video again and again to understand Indian accent and to practice Indian accent. That was my honest effort for you to learn Indian accent. If you like that video, please like it and share it for others. And if you think you want to contact me to have one-to-one lesson with me, you may contact me. I have already given my email ID and Skype ID here in that video and below that video. Thanks for watching that video. Thank you.